The Guild is Maximum Lawyers' community of legal entrepreneurs who are taking their businesses and lives to the next level. As a Guild member, you'll build relationships, be held accountable, and learn strategies specifically designed to get you unstuck and accelerate your plan for growth. Members are also granted exclusive access to masterminds hosted around the country. Our next event is coming up, and we're heading to Scottsdale, Arizona. There's something truly magical about the power of these in-person connections where real-time breakthroughs happen. Picture this. You're surrounded by like-minded law firm owners tackling your business and mindset challenges together. The energy is electric, the insights are transformative, and the results are game-changing. Investing in yourself is the best decision you'll ever make. The knowledge, strategies, and breakthroughs you'll gain are priceless assets that will supercharge your practice and propel you forward. Join the Guild and secure your ticket to Scottsdale at the best possible price by visiting maxlawevents.com.
Phone calls are actually on the rise, and it's because mobile search is overtaking desktop search. And so people are clicking to call, and they're clicking to call in that moment when they're ready to make a decision. So it's really, in this day and age, it's more important than ever. And you can think about what one new client can mean in terms of revenue depending on the type of practice you have, and can make or break.
Run your law firm the right way. This is the Maximum Lawyer Podcast. Your hosts, Jim Hacking and Tyson Mutrux. Let's partner up and maximize your firm. Welcome to the show.
You're back on the Maximum Lawyer Podcast. I'm Jim Hacking.
And I'm Tyson Mutrux. Jimmy, we have probably our highest profile guest on the podcast this week. I'm pretty excited about it. So I don't want to get into the topic yet. I do want to sort of go over a little bit about who our guest is. Our guest is the great Jill Nelson. She is the CEO and founder of Ruby Receptionists, which she started in 2003. And I believe these numbers are right. Jill, you have to correct me if I'm wrong, but you have about 300 employees. The company was named Best Small Company to Work For by Forbes magazine. You've been Entrepreneur of the Year, and you've got over 5,000 customers, 40% of which are attorneys. Is that right?
Thank you so much for the really lovely introduction, and it's so great to be with you guys today. And it's almost exactly true. Probably since that synopsis has come out, we've grown our company another 1,000 or so customers and grown to about 400 employees today. So it's always a fun ride over here at Ruby. And I think we're approaching something like almost 45% of our customers are now solo and small firm attorneys. So again, it's just really great to be with you guys today to talk about how we can help attorneys grow their practice.
Jill, it's really amazing the growth that you've had. And why don't you explain to our listeners, if you don't mind, what Ruby Receptionist is, what services you offered, and then how lawyers can take advantage of that.
Okay, so Ruby, we are a virtual receptionist company. But what that means to attorneys and law practices is we are your business's first impression, and we help law firms win new business and keep their clients happy by creating a wonderful call experience. And we do that by leveraging our proprietary call handling software that's increasingly integrated into the attorneys support that they use every day, and then just hiring and training and empowering wonderful people who truly care about the outcome of every call.
Jill, now, I know the answer to this because I've dealt with multiple answering services, but
yes.
What sets you apart? Really, what makes Ruby so much greater than these other companies? And I've used multiple ones, I think Jim has too, but what sets you all apart?
Really, only Ruby, I think, from the day we started, we lived and breathed to keep alive those personal, meaningful connections and really helping them step outside of the rules to really connect with callers, looking at how we can continue to use technology to deliver a better call experience. I think at the end of the day, what matters is the experience that you're delivering to the caller to win business, and Ruby's is just like none other.
Jill, a lot of our listeners are attorneys who have dreams of law firms with big numbers of employees. And talk to us a little bit about the early days of Ruby Receptionists. What are some things that you learned and that you learned about scaling? I mean, to think that you went from a small startup to having 400 employees and 6,000 customers, I mean, that's just mind-blowing.
Oh, yeah, but it's a journey and there's always something, but I think when we really started to nail it was when we figured out what our value proposition was. I did come from a receptionist background and I had office experience management and a degree in accounting. So when I started the business, I thought it was just about helping companies with an essential function. And it wasn't until we started getting phone calls from our customers or referrals saying, oh my gosh, you just won business for me. And it was because you were so nice and you treat my callers so well. I can focus on my practice. And when we really figured out that what we were about was keeping alive those meaningful connections and delivering an exceptional call experience to help grow business rather than just keep the lights on. And then we started to hire around that and train around that and stay singularly focused on that through the good and the bad economies that we've lived through. It just staying focused on what it is we do for our customers and aligning our people around that. I think that would be the one theme throughout the years that has helped us be successful.
So, Jill, attorneys, we go through law school. We go through 3 years of law school.
Mm-hmm.
They teach us a lot of things. We do a lot of reading. But one of the big things that they do not teach us how to do is actually talk on the phone and talk to clients and actually treat them well. Do you have any general advice for attorneys on how they should talk on the phone and talk to clients?
Well, I'm not an attorney. I did not go to law school, so I cannot tell you how to practice law or what you do for your clients to serve them or not. And so you can always have us talk for you. We're happy to do that. I think, when I think about serving attorney customers, your callers, almost all of them are going through a time of stress, whether it's exciting stress because they're starting their own business and are incorporating, or whether it's family estate planning, or, perhaps someone's been arrested or, has been injured, whatever it is. If you think families dividing, almost every situation for somebody to hire an attorney involves amount of personal stress around these very, very important life occurrences. So I think recognizing that, and of all of those things, what instills comfort and confidence is when people do what they say they're going to do. So I think that would be, if I had one piece of advice when you're talking to your clients or callers, is if someone says you're going to call back in a day, call back in a day. Otherwise, everyone could be thinking the worst, again, especially in those times of stress.
We're talking with Jill Nelson. She's the founder and chief executive officer of Ruby Receptionists. We're really glad to have her. Jill, how does Ruby Receptionist actually work? Walk us through what happens when a caller calls the lawyer's number, and then how do things work on your end?
Yeah. And so this is where, the matching of the wonderful receptionist with the great technology. From a caller's perspective, they're dialing their attorney's office, and within a couple rings, and in fact, 99% of all of our calls are answered by one of our live receptionists within 4 rings. They just receive a bright, cheery greeting that's completely customized to that law practice. And then depending on what they ask for, our receptionist will handle the call completely according to the attorney's instructions. So, for example, we know if someone from the courthouse calls, if a judge's office is calling, that oftentimes those are very important calls, and attorneys have asked us to interrupt them no matter what they're doing to put a call through. And in terms of if someone is a potential new client for an attorney, that call might be screened and put through to the office. We might be asked to take a message. But really, from day to day, moment to moment, employee to employee within your organization, call handling instructions are completely customized. So what the caller would experience is just a really friendly person guiding them along and either transferring them to the right person or getting a message taken, perhaps being asked a few questions, but generally providing a reassuring, kind, caring voice that lets them know that the attorney does have their information and they'll, be taken care of. From there, if we put a call through, if we were to put a call through to you, so Jim, let's say you were receiving calls on your cell phone. So let's say Ann called you and said, may I speak with Jim? And Jim is noted as taking calls. We would, may I say who's calling? This is Ann. Nelson, and then just one moment, Anne, and then Anne is on hold listening to lovely music that's completely, again, customized by whatever you have selected, and we're dialing you on your cell phone, you answer, and you're on your cell phone, and it's me saying, oh, hi, Jim, I have Anne on the line, would you like the call? And you say, of course, and then Anne not even realizing that she's called Portland, Oregon, and then been transferred to a cell phone somewhere, in, I don't know, a coffee shop or a golf course, and now you guys are connected. That's how calls work when someone is taking calls, when they've used their mobile app and set their status as, just one click, I'm in a meeting for the next hour or so. Then Anne looks like Jim's in a meeting, may I take a message, and whatever it is you've asked us to do. And then those messages will get delivered right into your mobile app. You'll receive, depending on what your settings are, you might receive an alert on your phone, you might receive an alert on your Apple Watch, or you might just receive an email depending on whatever your preferences are. And so it's all very seamless, and then you can return that call at your leisure, dialing through your mobile phone. Does that make sense, or did I get too nutty-bolty?
That was perfect.
Okay, great. But really, what it feels like is that you have this office, no matter where you are, no matter what time of day, your callers are going to receive a wonderful, pleasant experience, and you're going to get the calls you want and none of the calls you don't want wherever you are.
Jill, we were talking a little bit before the show about the numbers a little bit, and can you talk a little bit about any numbers that you may have about lost clients because of a bad phone experience, or anything that you might have that could really demonstrate how important it is to have a live, warm, cheery voice on the other end of the phone?
Yeah, it's really remarkable, even in this day and age. When I started the business 14 years ago, I thought, will the phone call ever die? And in fact, phone calls are actually on the rise, and it's because mobile search is overtaking desktop search. And so people are clicking to call, and they're clicking to call in that moment when they're ready to make a decision. And so we have some statistics from Google that say something like 70% of mobile searches result in a phone call. And Kelsey BIA reports that something like 29% of all inbound phone calls lead to a sale versus 2% if someone fills out a form on your website. And then 47% of mobile users will move on to someone else if you do not have a business phone number. And if you do not have a positive phone experience, 80% of your callers are likely to go somewhere else for their needs. So it's really, in this day and age, it's more important than ever. And you can think about what one new client can mean in terms of revenue depending on the type of practice you have, and can make or break.
Certainly pay for itself, that's for sure.
Yes.
Jill, how does Ruby Receptionists go about recruiting the right kind of people they want to answer the phones?
So if you've experienced Ruby service, you've experienced how deeply that receptionist wants to make you happy and please you and leaves you with a positive, cheery impression. That's kind of what it's like working at Ruby, and it feeds on itself. And I think more than anything, the people that we hire, just they're wonderful. Just being around them is one of the key contributors to getting us being voted a great place to work. So our funnel is actually really strong for new receptionist candidates. Something like 70% of our hires come from referral. So the same level of dedication we have to making our customers happy, we have to walk our talk, and we want to make our employees happy too. And I think at the core, that's the strategy. But I also firmly believe in massive training and just being really never ending on that we can always be better, and creating a culture of striving for growth, and then really empowering people and making sure you're incenting around the things that matter. So I would say a really good chunk of the population are great candidates as a receptionist at Ruby. But if they go work somewhere else and being nice isn't reinforced and rewarded, and if they're given so many restrictive rules around, delivering service and being quick to practice their tasks rather than really doing a great job, perhaps that same employee wouldn't deliver the same experience at somewhere else. So it's not just about recruiting the right people. It's once they get here, we want to make sure and empower them to really deliver that service, keep them happy so they stick around and refer their friends, and just continue to help them build their skills by train.
Jill, I'm actually going to follow up to that question because I heard something really interesting that you incentivize your employees based upon basically how well they take care of your customers, and not necessarily the number of calls that they take, not the volume of calls that come in. Is that true? And then how are you able to track that?
The things that you can track it's tempting to want to, reward off of that. And it is hard. We actually did and it is true, it was one of the lessons we had to realize about. We used to talk about wowing customers and make their day brighter, and then we would give raises based on productivity. And we let go of that probably, 9 or 10 years ago when we realized how sort of hypocritical that was. We have moved to this model because we have reached a level of standards that we actually, if you're a Ruby, you're an A player, so all Rubies, depending on their experience, actually make the same wage, but then every quarter we award legendary receptionist cash awards. And that's where the really great stories get fished out of how someone made a difference, and they get cash prizes. The wow story of the quarter gets a $500 cash prize, and a legendary receptionist gets nominated for their overall performance and receives cash awards. And we actually get to look at their call experiences. We get to look at customers that have proactively written about the experience they had with that particular receptionist. So we reward a legendary receptionist cash award. And that's how we continue to sort of incent on the things that matter.
Jill, I'm on your website and I'm looking at your company's core values, and I like all 5 of them. But the one that I like the most is practice wowism. What is wowism?
Yes, and I'm so glad that you like that one the most. That actually, I have to think about what my favorite are. I think mine is also practice wowism, which is just that whole concept of fine is a 4-letter word. Like we want to hit it out of the park. And practice wowism is really just getting people to say wow. So if we can anticipate your unexpressed need and give it to you before you ask, you might get a wow. That would be, if you get a wow, I didn't even ask for that, and you just knew to put this call through. It might be we made a connection. Let's say I'm talking to one of our customers and we notice that they're sniffling over the phone, and the next day a little care package shows up that says, hey, I hope you get over your cold soon. That's practicing wowism. It's just the unexpected delight. It's going beyond just doing the basics and doing what you say you're going to do it, but just really over-delivering and getting a wow.
Jill, now, the answering service, the job you'll do is fantastic, but it may not be right for everybody. What are some reasons why an answering service, Ruby in particular, may not be right for an attorney?
Yeah. Well, I think the more the value of a phone call is, if it's strong, then, it's hard for me to think of a situation where answering the phone is not a good idea. But in terms of answering services, there is that, I do think it's important that whatever service you choose, you do want to create a great experience. So if the answering service is not able to be helpful enough to make your callers feel like it was a good experience and that a voicemail wouldn't be a worse experience, then, an answering service probably isn't the right solution. At the end of the day, it has to add value. And if it's not doing that, then it doesn't make sense. But tactically, in almost every situation, I can think of why you would want to use an answering, and certainly a virtual receptionist. We like to think of Ruby as being very different than an answering service because we speak as we are part of your practice and we have the right information at our fingertips, because more likely than not, we're integrated with your practice management software. So our messages are going right into your software. We know who your familiar callers are. We know how you want your calls. We know how to answer basic questions. And so it's different than sort of a blind answering service who may not be able to be helpful. And if you if you're on the phone and you're in a time of need and the person at the other end of the line isn't able to be helpful and they aren't able to instill confidence, it's actually a detractor and not a plus.
It's funny you say that because I feel like every time I call Ruby an answering service, it's insulting to you because the way you all, how good of a job you do. And so I apologize for that. You all are really great. So I apologize. You are more than an answering service. It's not fair to compare you to that, but I apologize for that. I do, whenever I would ask the question, it was like, I don't really feel like it's an answering service. You'll do such a great job.
You. We feel like we're part of your marketing team because we really feel like we're a part of the team of our customers. We're a daytime service. I don't know if and that's where like a traditional answering service is a 24-hour sort of backup position, and we might be a backup position, and we're a big part of the day from 5 a.m. on the West Coast to 9 p.m. In the evening. So that's almost all 8 a.m. to midnight on the East Coast. So we're there most of the time, but we're not a backup. We're a part of your firm.
When I first started, when I went out on my own back in 2008, I used Ruby at first, and we stopped using Ruby just because we had so many calls that we just basically have someone who his entire job is answering the phone now. So, but I remember back when we were using Ruby, the very first day that you guys were on the case, my wife called the office, and she knew that my paralegal / receptionist name was Adela, and the only people that worked in the firm were Adela and Jim. So my wife called up, and Anna answered the phone, and my wife called me later and said, "Who's Anna? She has the best phone voice, and she was so attentive. It was the best phone call I ever had." Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you for saying that.
Sure.
And congratulations on growing your practice.
Thanks. So one other question that I really want to get your honest answer on. And when you guys are all, I know 45% of your clients are attorneys, and I'm not asking you to dump on attorneys, but I'm wondering, are there things that are unique about working with attorneys that either you guys enjoy or that makes life difficult, or things that attorneys need to think about when working with Ruby Receptionists? That's
a really great question. And, we have examined the attorney as it relates to how does it compare to the rest of, there are other customers. And we love working with attorneys by far and away on almost every measurement. They are our best customers, not just our biggest component. And so we continue to learn more and more about how can we help attorneys be successful and really focus specifically on that. But the unique thing about those attorney phone calls, and I will go back to that sort of that moment of stress, is that callers, and it varies depending on the type of practice, but very often in a time of stress. And that's what can make it, for a receptionist, it can make it the most rewarding and the most challenging and we live for someone calling, feeling frustrated, and being able to turn them around and make them feel at peace and know that you made a difference in their day. We live for that. And so that's why it can be the most rewarding, that if someone's going through a very difficult time in their life, and that's probably the theme with attorneys, the people going through the most difficult time in their life are coming in on, the lines of our attorney clients. And so that's where we actually can, when we go, that was a really great day of work. I really made a difference in someone's life. It's those callers. At the same time, it can be really challenging and even sometimes emotionally draining when someone is having such a hard time and then they want to take it on the receptionist. And we know not to take it personally, but it can be challenging.
Jill, we know that you're very busy, so before I wrap things up, though, I do want to remind everybody to go to the Facebook page, make sure you interact with us there, go to MaximumLawyer.com. Also, wherever you get your podcast, please like and review us, either whether it be on iTunes or any other place that you do get your podcast. But I do want to get to our hack and tips of the week. Jimmy, what is your hack of the week?
So I've talked before on the podcast about a great little service that I use called Meet Edgar. Meet Edgar will take in all of your tweets or your posts on other social media sites, and you can load them all in, and then it will, at whatever interval you want, it will put out tweets or Facebook posts or whatever you like, and it's a great way to repurpose content. But they also have a pretty good newsletter, and in their most recent newsletter, they talk about something that we talk about on this show a lot, and that is Facebook Live. And so we'll put a link to the blog post on our website about what the ways you can maximize Facebook Live events that you've had and ways that you can make sure that more and more people see it. So it's a pretty good article. So I'll share that.
Yeah, and I actually really do. I don't use Meet Edgar, but I do get their newsletter, and it really is a great newsletter. Jill, I understand that you've got a tip of the week, and it's actually really cool. I heard you talk about it before, and I think it's actually really cool. So go ahead.
Oh, good. Well, I have to plug one of our new features in the Ruby mobile app. So it is the return call feature in the Ruby mobile app. And when you host your phone number with Ruby, which you can do at no charges included in your service, and you want to make a phone call through the Ruby app, whether it's returning a phone call with one click or calling anybody in your contact list, you can do so, and it will publish your business caller ID so that you can keep your clients returning, using your business phone number rather than your mobile phone number, and not having to give that out, and making sure that when they're calling the office and not your cell phone.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. It is really an awesome feature. It is such a cool feature, and just so people are really clear about this, Jill, you're actually saving them money with this because you host the number now. Before you used to not host the number, now you do, and so you don't need the phone company. You don't need a voice over internet phone company to host your number. Now Ruby does that for you, so it reduces those costs so they can afford to pay for Ruby. So I think that's really awesome.
Yeah, thank you for adding that on.
So we'll plug as much as we can. So my tip of the week is actually nothing. It's actually not as cool as both of yours, but it is something that I've found useful. It's called stickermule.com, just like it sounds, and you can get custom labels, magnets, stickers, and wall decals. So it's pretty cool. It's people can check it out. You go through, you upload your logo, and a lot of the work is done electronically through their magic website, and then you get your magnets or whatever it may be in the mail, and it's pretty quick. So that's something I want to pass along because I used it recently, and I really like it. But I do want to wrap things up. Jill, we very much appreciate it, and thank you for moving your schedule around to actually do this with us. You've been a fantastic guest. Thank you.
Well, thank you for inviting me and for having me on the show, and for doing what it is you do, giving attorneys, helpful tips and growing their practice. And we always say your success is our success. So thank you for helping our customers grow too.
All right. With that, we'll wrap up the show. Thanks, Jill.
Thank you all. Have a great afternoon. All right. Bye-bye.
You too. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the Maximum Lawyer Podcast. To stay in contact with your host and to access more content, go to MaximumLawyer.com. Have a great week and catch you next time.